Hi everyone! Today I'm working on a figure drawing sketch, and this time I decided it's finally time to draw a man. I feel like most of the time I end up sketching women, which I love, but I realized it's probably just because it's so much easier to find good references of closed but still figure drawing friendly poses when it comes to women. You can find tons of dynamic, interesting poses that still show the body structure and movement without being completely nude. With men, though, not so much. Like, sure, there are a lot of shirtless photos out there, tons, but they all kind of have that fitness model vibe, or they're just standing there with no movement, no twist, or interesting angles. I was hoping for something closer to a classical figure drawing reference, where the pose feels natural and the body is doing something interesting. I even tried scrolling through beach photos, thinking maybe I'd find someone sitting or stretching or doing something less stiff. But nope, pretty much all of them were just standing straight and smiling to the camera. So I was really happy when I stumbled across this yoga photo shoot. The lighting was nice, the energy felt calm and natural, and there was this one tricky pose that immediately caught my eye. The balance, the twist, the arm reaching toward the foot. I knew it was going to be a challenge, but the good kind, the kind that makes you want to start drawing right away. As usual, I started with a loose sketch using a graphite pencil. I like starting in graphite because it gives me freedom to make changes and mess up and adjust things without any stress. The plan is always to refine it later with a colored pencil. I'm using a Payne's Gray one for the final lines. I started by marking out a few key points: the top of his foot, since it's all the way up there, and the bottom of his hand, just to give myself some vertical boundaries. Then I dropped in a quick oval for the head and started working on his face. Now this is where things started to not exactly fall apart, but definitely drift off course a little. I got completely sucked into getting his expression right. There was something about the eyes. They were supposed to be looking up at his foot, and no matter how many times I tried, they just kept staring straight ahead. So I'm here spending way too much time fiddling with tiny details on his eyes and mouth, and I completely missed the fact that I had placed his head way too high, like way too high. The top of his head ended up somewhere in the middle of his lifted foot, and if you look at the reference, it's supposed to be under that foot, not in the middle of it. But eventually, after a bit of internal drama and debating whether I could live with the weird proportions, I gave in and made myself fix it. I mean, I chose a complicated pose. I knew it might not go smoothly, but I also know that I like a good challenge. I actually get more motivated when something feels tricky, but fun tricky, you know. I erased the head, repositioned it, and started redrawing some parts of the sketch. And you know what? It was worth it. The torso finally looked better, and the whole figure made more sense. I was a little worried that after redrawing the eyes so many times, I wouldn't be able to fully erase the earlier ones, and this poor guy would end up with ghost eyes floating on his forehead. But honestly, the too long torso was bugging me way more. If it came down to a four-eyed man or weirdly stretched torso, I'd take the extra eyes. Luckily, in the end, some new thick eyebrows covered the old eye marks, and the eyes, weirdly enough, kind of sorted themselves out too. I don't know if it was the new placement or just luck, but they started looking up instead of just out into space. Not perfectly at the foot like they should, but definitely better. I'll take that as a win. Once I got everything in place and it finally felt right, I could relax, like actually relax. I outlined everything with the Payne's Gray pencil, started cleaning up the graphite lines, and could finally move on to the part I'd been looking forward to, painting. So, after finally figuring out the sketch, I took a deep breath and moved on to painting, starting with the background and all those big soft shadows before touching the figure itself. I wanted to get that part done first so I wouldn't be too precious with it later on. I grabbed my favorite big flat brush, it's a 1-inch wash brush, and mixed up a kind of purplish grey. I was aiming for something light and subtle, though honestly it could have been even lighter, but at that point, after spending what felt like forever just on the initial drawing, I didn't feel like stressing about the background shadows being a little too dark. I just wanted to get into the flow of painting and let myself enjoy it. To mix that grey, I used burnt sienna with some ultramarine light, one of my go-to combos. That mix gives a really soft purpley tone that I knew would sit nicely next to the skin tones I'd be adding later. I also used burnt sienna in the skin mix, so it kind of ties everything together. Plus, since purple and yellow are complementary colors, I figured it would make the skin pop a bit more. His skin isn't literally yellow, obviously, but it has those warm golden undertones, so visually it kind of works that way. Also, can we talk about how satisfying it is to work with a big brush on large areas? There is something really calming about it. You just load it up with paint and go. It's kind of like feeling a coloring book, but more free, super meditative. And it was exactly what I needed in that moment, to chill out, reset my brain and just focus on shapes and paint and color instead of worrying about proportions and facial features. This part really helped me ease into the rest of the process. Just big strokes, simple shapes, letting the paint flow, and not overthinking anything. Sometimes painting like that, even just for a little while, is all it takes to get back into that relaxed zone and actually enjoy what you're working on again. When I started painting his skin with the first layer of gouache, I didn't realize right away that the mix came out way more yellow-orange than what I usually go for. I think it's because I made a new mix for this new palette and probably messed up the proportions a little, comparing to my old go-to skin mix in the big pink palette I normally use in my other videos. The colors just came out different this time, and with that purplish grey background already in place, the contrast made his skin tone look even more yellow, like almost glowing, but not in a good way. So yeah, another little problem to solve on the fly. I didn't feel like repainting the whole thing from scratch, so I figured I'd just adjust it as I went. My plan was to tone things down by mixing in some burnt umber later for the areas that are more in shadow, luckily almost everything except his upper torso. So it worked out okay, and I actually like how it ended up giving a bit more dimension to the skin tone. I just kept building up the shadows little by little, layering and adjusting until it looked balanced enough. I tried not to overthink it too much, just going with what felt right. After that, I moved on to painting his shorts, which felt like a break, honestly. It's always a bit of a relief to paint something simple after fussing over details for so long. Then came the hair, and finally the last stage, going over everything with colored pencils to pull out some details. I added some texture, refined a few edges, and even tried to draw some body hair on his legs and arms. That part still feels tricky to me, like I'm never sure how much is too much. It's easy to go from subtle texture to oops, now it looks like fur. So yeah, definitely something I want to practice more. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. It was a bit of a journey, lots of adjustments and second guessing, but that's part of the fun, right? Thanks for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. And as always, if you decide to try this same reference, I'd love to see what you come up with. Also, I just started a new Instagram account, TR Sketch Club, where I'll be sharing your amazing creations. So if you post your version of this sketch or anything else from my Patreon or the free monthly references I share on Instagram, just make sure your account is set to public and tag TR Sketch Club as a collaborator. That way I can feature your post on the page. I'm hoping to grow that account into a space where your work can be seen and appreciated by more people, so feel free to tag away. I'd love to spotlight what you're making. Have fun sketching and painting. See you next time!